Hey everyone, Mark Johnston here with High Thrive Coaching, here for the Thriving Marriage. Today we've been looking through some of the posts. We've been looking at questions that people have been asking, and we really, trying to pay attention, trying to pay attention to what you guys are looking for. And so this week we're talking about intimacy and what happens to intimacy within a marriage. I see a lot of people, a lot of couples struggle with this. Over time, they start to lose that intimate part of their relationship. They start to grow further apart. And it's really helpful to understand why that is before you move on to fixing that problem. So, as always, with any of these, if you have questions, if you have something that you want to ask me while I'm doing this live stream, please feel free to comment and let me know what's going on, and I'll try and address any questions towards the end of the stream. So just want to start off with just so that we're on the same page here. I know a lot of people, when they talk about intimacy, they're really talking about one type of intimacy, and that physical intimacy. But really, what intimacy is all about. It's about how open and close that you feel to someone else. Like I said, many people think of it, okay, it's about sex, but there's really lots of different types of intimacy. You might have that physical intimacy, and you might have that emotional intimacy, or you might even have like an intellectual intimacy. People usually treat each of these different types a little bit differently. Maybe you and your partner are feel very close when in regards to spirituality, and you guys can talk very deeply and very openly about that. But maybe it's really difficult to talk about your emotions or how you're feeling or the problems within the marriage. Or maybe you're able to talk about those feelings, but for one reason or another, you've lost that physical component. I do think that a lot of times what does happen, what tends to be missed, when people are saying, okay, we've drifted apart, it is usually specifically about this emotional intimacy, the inability to come together, to talk about how people are feeling, to talk about concerns or problems without it devolving into some sort of argument or issue. And I'll be honest, the number one common problem that I see in most people that talk with me is this inability right here to talk about these concerns. Hey everyone, hi Bryce, hi Suzanne. So yeah, like I was saying, when I see troubled couples, that problem with emotional intimacy is oftentimes the culprit. Not being able to talk about problems can, if you just sweep everything under the rug, down the road, eventually it's going to build up resentment, it's going to build up anger, it's going to cause all sorts of issues down the road. But what I want to talk about here specifically is what happens. How do you get from this point where you are really close, you can talk about just about anything, to the point where you feel like you're leading separate lives? So we'll get into the reasons in a moment, but just to explain it just a little bit further, and this is going to make sense as we get into the reasons, is that intimacy is all about trust. It's about the ability to be open and vulnerable, take some risk with someone else, and for that vulnerability to be treated well. And absolutely the opposite is true, is when that vulnerability, that risk, that openness is rejected or treated poorly, is when we start to lose intimacy. But there's different things that get involved here, different ways that this comes about. First and foremost, that very open rejection. When you as an individual, you feel like, okay, I'm going to open myself up, whether that is you're going to your spouse wanting, and asking for some physical affection or some emotional connection. You feel like, okay, here I am, and I'm wanting something positive here. I want to connect with my partner. And when that's rejected, that absolutely starts to erode that trust. It has that subsequent effect later on that as you continue to put yourself out there and to continue to make those requests and those rejections continue to happen, you start yourself pulling away. And it begins this cycle. You pull away and you reject your partner more. So they pull away and they reject you more, and the intimacy starts to fade away. Like I was saying earlier, that when you lack that when that emotional intimacy starts to fade away, and you stop talking about problems, you stop resolving those things, and resentment builds up. This absolutely can start to erode that intimacy. I mean, let's imagine if you approach your relationship here and you are feeling any amount of resentment, what's the likelihood that you're going to be understanding, that you're going to be open, that you're going to be trusting, that you're going to be accepting of your partner? It's really, really difficult. And the catch-22 here is that opening up, the solution here, opening up and talking about concerns actually requires some amount of intimacy. But if you had that to begin with, then we wouldn't have this resentment. And it just kind of feeds in on itself. So that resentment, once again, you pull away because you have that resentment, your partner pulls away, and we start having that loss of intimacy. But sometimes it's even not about the overarching, the big picture here. Sometimes it is all about in the moment. A lot of times there are certain filters that we have over the conversations that we have with our partner. For instance, if your partner, your husband or wife, has had a bad day at work and there's stress that was involved there, if they've been having problems with their boss and feeling rejected there might be all sorts of things going on. Stress from work, stress from personal life, stress from other relationships. And this is going to come out in the ability to feel close to your partner. And usually when I coach people through repairing intimacy, I usually go through and try to identify with my clients, okay, what are some of the filters that might be going on in some of these conversations? Are there other things from outside of the relationship affecting this conversation right now? And absolutely, this is something that can contribute to this loss of intimacy as stress builds up and people sometimes have the reaction of retreating further into themselves. So we've been talking here now almost 10 minutes about all the ways that intimacy might die off. And hey everyone, I'm seeing more people are popping in. Jeffrey, Anthony, Shelly, how are you doing? Like I said before, if you have questions, let me know. And like I was saying, okay, so we have all these reasons that over time intimacy tends to fade away. So what do you do about it? For the sake of time, we can't go completely in depth, but like I said earlier, if intimacy is all about trust, and it's all about, and trust is built up as, a person is vulnerable, as they're open, and that vulnerability, that risk is rewarded. The path back to intimacy, the path back to trust, is a very similar path. It's almost like the opposite path of how it was lost in the first place. In other words, if you want to build up that intimacy again, if you want to build up that trust, it requires someone to be vulnerable and to have an open discussion about how to treat that vulnerability. Now, if both of you are involved in the process, it's usually a fairly straightforward, if not easy, maybe not easy approach, but it's usually straightforward. And it involves slowly opening up, slowly being vulnerable, and more so, and then helping your partner understand how to treat that vulnerability. There's going to be all sorts of steps along the way to get there, but absolutely, intimacy can be built up. It's not something that just magically happens. It's not something that just I mean, yes, it might happen naturally, but it's not, once it's lost, you can take the slow road and let it come back naturally over time, or you can actually make a concerted effort to, in a concentrated effort to rebuild that closeness and intimacy in your marriage. Now, if you all want a head start on trying to rebuild the intimacy, we do have a free offer. This is ways to increase intimacy in just a short amount of time. It's just a quick guide. I'll leave the link in the comments here. And it's just, a few suggestions on our, from us on how to rebuild this, or how to build up this such an important part of any marital relationship. I suggest that you guys take a look at it. Let us know if you have any questions, and yeah, that's what we're here for. So if you guys have any questions now, or if you think of any, send us a line or drop a comment in the comment here, the comment section of this video. We do like to keep an eye on this, and it gives us some inspiration sometimes for future videos, future live streams. So let us know how we can support all of you. All right. Thanks for watching. Once again, my name is Mark Johnston. I'm for High Thrive Coaching. Have a good day.